My only advice is, again, women should not keep things to themselves. I have been telling women, give yourself a birthday present. And what's that birthday present? It's not a dress or it's not a ring. A health checkup, which tells you that you are well. It's not just the bloods, but it's also the breast examination, the pelvic ultrasound, preventive measures, and talk to the doctor about your problems and let them then direct you to a place where you can get. It's not just about drugs, it's not just prescriptions, but it's also how you can handle that situation in a much more better way. And I'm glad things are moving forward. Things have changed, from a decade ago to what it is now. And I'm hoping that the younger people are very, very savvy on the Instagram and on the Facebooks, and they will start talking about this, and that change is definitely going to be there.
No, absolutely. In fact, we at She the People call this the sisterhood of wellness. And that is literally a bit like what she said. Find the woman next to you, tell her if she's not paying enough attention to her health, or at least open up a dialogue instead of just talking about what else to buy or where else to hang out. But let's look at one aspect which I think we all have sort of spoken about in the underbed of our conversations, which is the mental health changes that emerged. And Dr. Shehryar, I'd like you to spend a little more time double-clicking on that, because, it always ends up being a corollary to the larger issue, but sometimes it can be a central symptom that needs more addressal. So, your thoughts?
So, certain things about menopause are like obvious. They'll burst out. The flushes, the night sweats. There are certain things, maybe you depend upon doctors, the osteopenia, the osteoporosis, the heart. But there's something that's been overlooked for too long, not just in the midlife, but in healthcare in general, and that's mental and emotional health. And I was just seeing the data you put out, and if you're talking about 60% of women experiencing depression at some point and 40% experiencing anxiety, that's a lot. You also quoted a UK study, and in the UK, because of this, about 45% of working women actually considered quitting their jobs, right? That's your most valuable resource, almost thinking of walking out of the door, unacceptable. Now, the problem with these issues very often is that they are so varied that it's difficult to recognize. So if I was to classify it, basically say anxiety, depression, and the one thing a lot of women will resonate with is anger. They fly off the handle very easily. I often say mostly justified, but like Lara said, it's very difficult for society and the family to accept it. If I was to say causes, there is a hormonal reason. There's no doubt about it. There is a life situation reason, where she is, what she has achieved, and what is now disrupted. And there is a relationship reason. Now first, let me just quickly talk about the hormonal reasons. When there are dramatic changes in hormones, women will have issues coping with emotional health. Look at the wake-up calls a woman has in her life. 12 times a year before her periods, her hormones crash and she goes through something. That's PMS. Every time she has a baby, her hormones crash and she could go through the blues or depression. I call these wake-up calls. In fact, if you are experiencing this, be warned that menopause might bring these issues for you, and you be prepared for them and deal with them. Life situation, you've given so much, you've invested so much, you've led a double life. You've been professional and you've been personal, you've been family, and suddenly you find people are busier, spouse or partner more successful, maybe a little more focused on other things, children getting less dependent upon you, and that's where the relationships also come in. How do you approach this? Deal with the hormonal, if you need to deal with the hormonal, and very often it's like you fix flushes and fix the sleep, you'll probably become better. I'm not even talking about the brain fog that Lara referred to and the cognitive issues Suchitra referred to. Let's leave them aside, too big a field. This is the time, again, as mentioned by us here, that you have to recognize and you have to seek help and assistance. The help and assistance can come professional, and Suchitra, for me, Another aspect is not just the woman, but usually, thankfully, nowadays they come with their partners. It's the partner's responsibility to take some role in her health. He brings the woman for the checkup every year after her birthday. It's his contribution, not her responsibility.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with the people in your life. Do a sit down around the table and say, you know what, mom's going through something that all women go through. Mom has been there, invested in you all her life. This is payback time. And sometimes, this is when a woman also reaches the end of a tether. She probably now stands up, something she should have done 10 or 15 years ago. And that's inconvenient for people at work, inconvenient for the family, too bad. Like you rightly said, that's their problem, live with it. But at least communicate it. Trust me, when this communication happens, a lot of things get better. And that's where influencers come in, because your followers are not just women, they're also the men.
Yeah.
And trust me, they would want to do better if they knew how to. And finally, something small, like for me, anger is the biggest thing my patients tell me about. Doc, I keep flying off my handle. So I say, let's work out a strategy. If you feel it boiling up inside you, you shall walk away and go to another room. And you will tell your family that if mom's walking away, you will not follow her, you will not pester her, you will not ask her what happened. Give her space, she will be back in 10 minutes and she will handle it more rationally. Because if she didn't do this, she'll spend the next 24 hours feeling guilty and terrible that I said things I shouldn't have. So these are small things. These don't need medications.
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to stress here. I have all the respect for my colleagues, the psychiatrists and the counselors, and it's time to call out the big guns when required. But for that, you have to recognize it. Now, to recognize it is some very simple things you can do. There are online scales where you can give yourself a self-test, which will actually tell you where you are. There's something called a DAS scale. We modified it for a book. It will tell you anxiety, anger, depression, and then you can deal with it a lot better. This is mental health. I just have to finish by mentioning one other aspect, which is the elephant in the room which is not recognized, and that is sexuality.
Yeah.
This is something people have suffered in silence, and that is unacceptable. Part of it is physical, that can be fixed. Hormones can make the vaginal dryness and things better. This is something with a little bit of counseling and focus. I remember when we wrote a book and sent it to our friends for review, a very, very dear friend who's like an influencer type said, but you haven't told women how often they're supposed to have sex. Tough one.
Yeah.
And we actually made a recommendation, because unless you put it on the agenda, that's another thing that will be neglected, and it should not be.
Wow, what a discussion. Do you agree? Yes. I think that was amazing, very insightful, and I mean, there were so many moments which I could relate to, especially when, identifying the period when my mom underwent menopause. So, all those memories were kind of coming back to me. But thank you for such an insightful and such a lovely discussion. Thank
I know
you.
you thought about your mom. I'm thinking like, I'm getting in here like very soon. What's my plan?
So, can I just say a one-liner?
Sure, sure.
Yeah. For young girls, we always say, give them wings, let them fly. For the young girls. For the women who are the mature women that we are talking about, I always say, give them your time, hear them out, and see them conquer the world. So that's what we must.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so while we are here to discuss menopause, but we are also here for another reason, is to change things. Yes, we want to change a lot of things around us. So more people not just better understand menopause, but also feel encouraged to have more meaningful conversations. And this brings us to the excitement and the fun thing that we were talking about at the beginning. For that, I would like to welcome Nandini Goswami, Director and Head, Public Affairs for Abbott in India. Nandini?
Thank you, Gayatri, and I think that was indeed a wonderful conversation. A lot of things I think just crosses your mind and say, oops.
or mine. Yes, this was the fun and the exciting tool that we were talking about. As Nandini rightly said, this is a conversation starter to the most, to a condition which is not talked about. Simple.
Yeah.
You can't see the cards here, but we have placed 4 cards which are actually a part of the game. So to your left hand side, you can see that we have actually kept the conversation starter. So once you open that box, you will find a deck of 90 cards. But since we were to play the game today with you, we made it fairly simple. So we have just selected 4 cards. What you have to do is you just have to look at your card, read out the scenario for your audience, and choose one option which is listed on the card which is more relevant to you. And if you could also share a personal anecdote or a personal experience, I think that would be great. So Shelly, why don't we begin with you?
Okay, let's do this.
Women know that they are not alone.
Okay, to help other women know that they are not alone, I started a support group. I think all of you know that in one sense. Began writing a blog about my experiences when blogs were in. But actually, the real story really from my side would be that I started believing in the sisterhood of wellness. And that is really true because many times I would think that, you know, the way we are raised, right, you've got to just get this done. And I would say each time more and more women who I spoke to would say, to get this done, I reinvent the wheel every day. I learn from scratch. And that just seemed like such a futile exercise. It seemed like, why should I have to learn this from scratch if somebody else has solved this problem? Where is she? Why don't I find her, right? And that became such a big thing for me to drive, saying, let's find that woman who's done parenting at 35 for the first time. That was me, and I wanted somebody to tell me how do you become a mom at 35 and deal with it. Or, you know, entering a phase when you're saying, I'm on my 4th startup. Where is a person who can tell me how is it to start, fail, grow again? So I think in many ways, that is really the real truth that I have enjoyed coming face to face. And many ways, it's what I feel when I went across to another woman. She said, you know what? I was looking for someone like you too. So it was about making that beginning and saying that this is really the person I think I want to be. This is not the real or made up. This is my true experience. It may be sometimes good, sometimes ugly, but it's what it is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. My turn. Okay. To help other women in my life going through menopause, I plan to, write a booklet about my experience, made up start a chat group where we can share our experience, or mine. Okay.
You know, I can imagine you doing all these things, but we want to hear what you would.
Yes, I could possibly do all of these things. But Gayatri, I think the most important thing is that all of us today, with everything that we're exposed to, right, everything that we have access to, we've all become Google, Instagram, TikTok doctors. All of us. So even for women, we're bombarded constantly on an everyday basis with so much information. Today, if you really want to know what you're going through, you, by mistake, click on one thing and it will throw up, the machinery will throw up multiple posts about the same thing. So I could be reading about circadian health and intermittent fasting, and it all sounds amazing fixes to what I am going through. But at the end of the day, are they the experts? Are they the people who really know what my personal experience is? And because it's worked for someone else, is it going to work for me? So you know what? No, I do not want to write a booklet. I want to be part of something like the launch of the Next Chapter book. I want it to come from people who have put in time, effort, money, research on actually getting you the right kind of information. I want to be part of a starter kit which actually moves forward from where we actually left off which gives you an opportunity. I don't know where to start. All this sounds amazing, but am I really going to go home now and sit down and say, "Acha beta, aa jao, let's talk about menopause"? Where do we begin? You know, so this is incredible. I would actually encourage every single man here, take even 2 or 3 of these cards, carry them around in your pocket. And you know what? Yes, create the opportunity to maybe whip one out. I don't know, it can become your next party trick. Make it your own it. Let it be something that you can actually start by initiating a conversation rather than waiting for it to happen. And I think also, again, doctor, see, this is what I'm telling you. I came here with a thought and I had it and now it's gone because it's brain fog. And also I'm talking really fast, so I keep missing what I wanted to say. But this really is, I think, for me, the important part of what I really want to do with menopause. And most importantly, I want to be able to share experiences like this with people who are the experts. So to be on this stage today with Dr. Noser, to be here with Dr. Pandit is so empowering for me. And I know that I read all these terms when I'm looking through things because I have access to it. So I'm reading about HRT and I'm reading about, hormone replacement therapy. But it's easy for me to have access to it, not necessarily to a larger part of the Indian women audience. So I know that today when I talk about it, being who I am, it will ring true to somebody else. Someone might actually say, किस चीज़ की बात कर रही है? क्या है ये HRT? They might actually get up to go and do their own research or even speak to their medical practitioner, about it. So I think that for me, the most important thing that I can do is not stop talking, much to everybody else's dismay.
We wish you would never stop talking and continue to have conversations on menopause. Thank you, Lara. All right, and now, of course, Riri.
Okay, so talking to my...
Just for sharing their personal experiences and insights with us. Thank you so much. Just one last thing that we would want to say before we, kind of wrap up today's session is we hope that this conversation starter actually anchors or fuels more conversations, becomes like an important tool not only for women but for the men and for the entire support group around women to kind of help them have conversations and make sure that they get the right support at the right time. On that note, thank you so much for joining us today in this most important conversation. Thank you to our panelists and to our influencers. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to gather once again very soon to take this conversation forward. On that note, thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am. Firstly, last year also I was there. There are so many things to learn. As a man, tell us something when you wake up today morning for this event. What was your first thought for this event?
So I think, it's very exciting to be part of something with Abbott. पिछले साल हमने ये किताब launch की थी, The Next Chapter for Women, and today we're here to follow up on that and launch a kit that's a conversation starter kit on menopause. So a lot of times हमने menopause सुना है, हम बहुत सारे औरतों को जानते भी हैं जो who are going through menopause, लेकिन उनसे dialogue कैसे शुरू करें, इस चीज़ के बारे में उनसे पूछे कैसे. And most women also are very reluctant to really talk about their experiences because they fear not being understood. So I think this is a fantastic initiative by Abbott to really allow conversations to become normalized, to be free-flowing, to give you a chance to even ask your mom, your wife, your sisters, your sister-in-laws, people in your family, women, female members, about their experience with menopause and understand it a little better yourself as well. मिथ नहीं है, कोई मिथ नहीं है, ये बहुत ही नॉर्मल प्रोसेस है. सो ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि वी आर डीलिंग विद सम मिथिकल क्रीचर दैट्स कम आउट ऑफ नोवेयर. दिस इज़ वेरी मच अ पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ लाइफ. और जैसे किताब का जो टाइटल है द नेक्स्ट चैप्टर, इट्स अ नॉर्मल ट्रांजिशन. हर औरत इस ट्रांजिशन के थ्रू चलती है. इट्स जस्ट अंडरस्टैंडिंग इट बेटर टू हेल्प द वुमन हु इज़ गोइंग थ्रू दैट, डील विद इट, गो थ्रू इट in a way that's more empowering than to be frightened by what they're going through.
Ma'am, there are so many women who don't talk about this so openly. What would you like to say to them?
Yeah, I would say this is an amazing opportunity. This starter kit is really, really simple. This conversation kit, you know, I would really empower women, encourage women to get it. It will really help you start conversations within your homes, within your workplaces, with colleagues, with family members, with support groups. And ज़्यादातर से औरतें दूसरे औरतों से बात करती हैं इन चीज़ों के बारे में, लेकिन वो अपने ज़्यादातर से family members, male colleagues के साथ बात नहीं करते हैं. So I think this is a very simple, without it being, you know, intrusive, and without it being, it's a very gentle way to start a conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am.